At least 13 people were arrested as hundreds blocked traffic on two major highways, waving Mexican flags and burning a giant effigy of Donald Trump. Police fired rubber bullets, and pepper spray at hundreds of protesters after the crowds took over major intersections.
Load up, load up, load up, with rubber bullets.
Homophobia, sexual assault, white supremacy.
In terms of reaching out and being inclusive, he's done that too. And a will to risk to make things better and opportunities to embrace the underserved communities.
White privilege!
Load up, rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Here in New York, as many as 10,000 people surged through the streets and surrounded the barricaded-off Trump Tower where Donald Trump lives.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
We reject the president! Load up, load up, load up, with rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
I think it speaks to the disenfranchisement of the people that someone like him could be seen as offering anything to the masses.
Load up, load up, load up, with rubber bullets.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
What about gay people? Trump has vowed to protect the LGBT community from a fanatical ideology that represents its biggest threat: radical Islam.
As your president, I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBTQ citizens from the violence and oppression of a hateful foreign ideology.
Load up, load up, load up, with rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake, falling, 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 falling.
He is a racist.
Under Obama, more black people are living below the poverty line. The number of African Americans on food stamps has increased 58% under Obama.
On every leading economic issue, on the major economic issues, black Americans have lost ground in every one of those leading categories. So for the last 10 years, it's not been good for black folks.
Is this how the left helps black communities? By making them poorer and more dependent on government. Race relations are at their worst in decades. 8 years of Obama has been devastating for the black community.
He is a sexist. He is a neo-Nazi.
Well, we don't understand why you called in the National Guard.
Falling on my nose.
Not my president. He is a lying ass.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
Fake ass.
Little snowflake falling from the sky.
Dumb ass son of a bitch.
Load up, load up, load up, with rubber bullets.
Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake falling, 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 falling.
That's not my president! That's not my president! Load up, load up, load up, with rubber bullets.
Falling in my hand.
Thank you for taking America back 60 years of progress.
Falling on my head.
You just voted in a Nazi fascist.
Falling on my nose. Falling in my hand. Snowflake, snowflake, little snowflake.
What you gonna do about it? What you gonna do?
The following is a Nightside Radio Studios production. From the wind-powered Nightside Radio Studios,
tear down this wall.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
It's this man. It's the compassion. It's the dignity. It's the wisdom. It's the horse sense of the guy.
Did you know that 65% of the people murdered in the last 10 years were killed by handguns?
Would it make you feel any better, little girl, if they was pushed out of windows?
The American people have seen the truth, and they can see through your lies. There's coming a day when publications such as yours turn into nothing more than flea market advertising. They'll be handing it out for free in grocery store parking lots under everybody's windshield wiper. Yeah, that's the future for the Washington Post and the New York Times and every other liberal publication in this country. We are not going to tolerate your bull anymore. None of it. The American people are fed up. I thought we made that clear on November 8th, but apparently you people in the media just don't get it. A new chapter in American history begins now.
It is my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America.
Donald Trump is the person to make America great again.
We are a team.
They said it couldn't be done.
Together, we will lead our party back to the White House.
He said it must be done.
Beginning on January 20th, we cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. The most important difference between our plan and that of our opponent is that our plan will put America first.
Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, thank you, Marcus, and welcome, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas weekend. You know what? The entire northern half of the country right now feeling the effects of this massive Arctic blast. We've got lots of snow. We got cold temperatures. I mean, it was right on time for the Christmas weekend. Well, we'll see how everybody feels about that. Dr. Mark Davis is with us today, and we'll be talking about the latest news and his observations and your phone calls, too. Phone lines open at 855-853-5227, and welcome, everybody. Good to have you with us today on the J.J. McCartney Show, and without any further ado, hello, Dr. Mark Davis.
Oh, hi, JJ. How are you feeling? Happy holiday to you.
You know,
Good to be back on the air with you.
I've got to say, I'm doing okay. I'm working on a cough. And the reason I'm working on a cough is because we've had this cold weather. The other day we were down to 12 below. We've had lots of snow. I think we have about 18 inches of snow now in the last 4 days. And this morning I had to get out and take my wife to work. And so we did that. And in doing that, I discovered that one of the tires on the vehicle was very low. And so I turned on my air compressor and tried to fill the tire up. I did the best I could, but I got so cold in my lungs. And so as soon as I dropped her off at work, went to the local tire shop and had them check all 4 tires and rotate them while they were at it and things like that. So I got out in the weather a bit. So, Dr. Mark Davis, I have a frog in my throat. What is your professional opinion on what a man should do? Hot tea?
Hot tea.
Okay.
Stay indoors, maybe a little bit of honey in the tea.
Okay.
And let it go. Don't talk too much.
Oh, great.
That's basically it. Don't exercise your vocal cords.
It's a good thing I have you here with me today.
If you have a cough with some mucus in it, you may need some antibiotic. So be careful with that one.
Oh, I've been keeping an eye on it. I am hyper
aware. You don't want
aware.
an infection in your lung. The cold affects the lungs pretty badly.
Yes.
Is a differential between that and infection virus and bacteria. So be careful.
And I know many people out there are probably going through the same thing. Because you go all year long, you work indoors, you do everything else indoors, and up until last Wednesday, we were in the mid-50s. We were like 56 degrees. Warmer than that in the days previous, and then in a matter of well, let's see, 4 days, we went from 56 degrees to Sunday. We woke up, it was about 12 below. And today, overnight low was -3, and the high today is not even supposed to reach 10. So it is, and it dries you out in a hurry, too, doesn't it?
Yeah, 18 inches of snow is a lot of snow. Sounds like when I went to medical school in Syracuse, New York. But Erie, Pennsylvania, they're claiming they got 53 inches in some areas.
Wow.
53.
I know they had 34 inches in one day.
Yeah, I heard
Erie.
that too, but
Wow.
there's an article here on Bing.com News saying that Erie looks like after 53 inches of snowfall.
Wow.
So it was somewhere between 34 and 53 inches.
Wow.
That's a lot of snow.
It is, we had been, with our overnight lows in the low 20s, maybe the upper teens, and then to all of a sudden go into this sub-zero mode where, right now it's I'm looking out the window, it's partly sunny and 6 degrees. And the relative humidity is actually 71%, and the dew point is -1. So I'm thinking we're probably going to see a few more snowflakes before the day is over. But they're predicting the high temperature today of 9, and then overnight we'll get down below 0 again. It's really, and the thing is, it's not only hard on the humans, it's also hard on the pets. The animals need more water.
My old theory, we have global cooling, not global warming. And then now the global warmists are going to come back and say, well, there was a big hole in the ozone layer causing the differential between 56 degrees and 12 degrees negative, which is a 68-degree difference.
So the big hole in the ozone.
Something's amiss somewhere. I got to tell you this.
The big hole in the ozone was letting all the warmth leak out into space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Letting all the hot air out from the politicians that accumulates in the atmosphere. That's what it's all about.
If we
that's
were
what the really global warming is.
If we were to set up a rocket and put Al Gore and Al Franken and you name it. I mean, there's so many politicians
a lot of
out
Al's there. Yeah.
That's right. If we Al Sharpton, let's make it. Let's lobby Congress to send up a manned spacecraft. Well, I don't know if you could call it manned, but you'd have Al Franken, Al Gore, and Al Sharpton on that spacecraft. And you know how much...
They'd all be friends. With their liberal bent, they'd definitely be friends, the three of them. Think of it for a second, what they all stand for.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why we should send them out to seek out new life and new civilizations.
Where no man has gone before.
That's right. That's right. And see,
Well, there won't be men going there anyway, so it'll remain where no man has gone before.
Can you imagine if you had that much hot air in a rocket?
Yeah, I can't imagine that much hot air in one room. Never mind in a rocket.
So,
think about it. The walls would they would explode.
So here's one thing that President Trump did, since you mentioned climate change. The president last week announced a new national security strategy for the U.S., focusing on protecting the homeland and the American way of life, promoting American prosperity, preserving peace through strength, and advancing the influence of America. There was hardly a whisper about climate change, which had become a focal point for President Obama. Obama once told Coast Guard personnel that climate change constitutes a serious threat to global security and immediate risk to national security, saying that we need to act, and we need to act now. His decision, he said, he declared, isn't that the true hallmark of leadership? When you're on deck, you stay vigilant, like, those guys on the destroyers did. I'm sorry. You have to mention it. You plan for every.
I just can't imagine some of the things that these people say and do just on the left. On any number of these subjects we bring up each time.
But the thing is, to call it a direct threat to national security, based on what? What
I wouldn't know.
What evidence?
I cannot conceptualize what global warming or any of these global problems that they come up with, how can they affect us in any which way? That the ice caps are going to melt, and it means the the shorelines on the east, especially on the East Coast, are going to flood into New York City. Come on. I can just break. We already heard that 20 years ago from Al Gore, and we're still not submerged yet.
Exactly.
There's just something wrong there. There's just the thinking is so skewed. But if they can make a buck for Al Gore, then he'll say it.
You know,
as long as it makes some money from.
If you're trying to understand
even his wife left him.
Exactly.
His wife left him because she couldn't stand his lies and deceit.
No. But when you look at it, in order to try and understand the thinking of these people that are crying the sky is falling with regard to climate change and such, in order to really try to understand them, you have to try to imagine being as stupid as they are. And I'm sorry, but that's a tall order. To try and make yourself deliberately think as stupidly as they do. And I don't think it's unattainable for people that actually have knowledge to try and pretend to be as stupid as Al Gore and Barack Obama and all the rest of the chicken littles out there crying the sky is falling. You know, obviously, all you have to do, you and I, all we have to do is just open the window every day and say, wow, we're still here.
Yeah, and we'll be here for millions of years to come. The sun won't burn out for 3 billion years plus, as they're telling us right now. And the CO2 levels have been pretty constant in the last 100 years. It's at 0.04% right now. They keep saying the CO2 levels are rising, and it's going to kill. CO2 is used by plants to make oxygen and other particulate matter, as well as carbohydrates. So to hear the global alarmists speaking as though they know something when they don't, especially Obama. Can you imagine Obama knowing any science at all?
No.
He killed the space program. He killed every science program he could come up with. And he produced bad vaccines
exactly right.
under him as well.
Exactly right.
Really, really bad vaccines.
I gotta tell you, you know, for people that claim that they believe in God, to have this kind of concern about things, I mean, I got news for everybody out there. You know, nobody's a bigger believer in God than I am. And my belief is that every star in the heavens, including the sun, the moon, all the rest, every planet, every celestial body that exists, it's acting exactly the way God wants it to. And there's not a thing in the universe that man can do to alter the activity of these celestial bodies. It all happens at the pleasure of God.
Let me put it this way. Physical law, which embodies everything, all how atoms connect into molecules into elements or substances that make us what we are, it was established. The law had to be established before the activity could happen, and someone had to set that in, because we have intelligent design in the universe, not only for biological beings, but the sun, the moon, the stars. Something set this going. Now, I can't conceptualize what that something is, but that's what we call God right now.
Well, you know, I honestly believe that, you know, first of all, anybody that doubts that God is a loving God or a God that is, you know, is brilliant in every respect, just consider for a moment the way that mankind reproduces, okay? Imagine, folks, a creator that came up with such an amazing way for our species to reproduce and gave us the ability to you know, make judgments on our own as far as, you know, I think I like that girl, you know. I mean, by the way, some people were blessed with more of that gene than they needed, like, say, Bill Clinton, you know. But the thing that sparked the human race growing to the level it is now was this ingenious apparatus that God made, where man and woman were a little bit different from one another and they fit together well. And I just think, you know, people want proof that God exists. I always look at it and think to myself, well, how can you prove that he doesn't? That's the more difficult question. See, to prove that God exists, all you have to do is look at the way that we're designed. And there's no way in the world. And by the way, mathematical equations that exist in nature are mind-boggling. They really are.
Yeah. Well, that's the language of God, mathematics. It always has been. Everything fits some way mathematically. So God speaks to us through math.
So did you and your family enjoy the weekend?
We had a great weekend. The kids came over. All my kids are in their 30s, and we had a great time. We had good food, good company. I just had lunch with my wife before coming on the air. We talked about it. The tree will stay out for another 3 or 4 weeks. And that's pretty much it. And we move on. We move on to 2018. It's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year for business in this country. Taxes are going to be reduced. Things are looking up for America, pretty much. And we're not going to take any garbage, or I can't use stronger language, from the North Koreans. That's not going to happen. If he makes any move at all, he's gone. He's out the door.
You know, I've got to believe. You know, you look at the calendar, and you know, we are. We're about to jump into a new year, and every ridiculous prediction that was made by people on the left has proven to be a fallacy, and every promise that President Trump made on the campaign trail, he is pursuing. You know, no politician gets everything they want, but Donald Trump has taken a very direct approach to keeping his promises. And I think that what he's doing, leaps and bounds, he is gaining respect from the American people. And
I think he's gaining respect all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very emphatic what he wants, and he's going to get what he wants, and that's it. He just got a reduction in the UN budget for $285 million out of over a $5 billion budget, and we give 22% of that budget. And he's changing his way of thinking right now. When they voted on Jerusalem, very few people voted with us, and so they're going to suffer. They're going to come to us.
Yeah, exactly right.
You know how they always do. Let's talk about Jerusalem for a moment. We are going to move our embassy to Jerusalem for sure. It should have been there decades ago.
Yes.
But the way the vote went was 128 votes against it, against moving it. That is 35 abstentions and 9 voted with us.
But wasn't it just back in November of 2014 that the Senate voted unanimously that Jerusalem would be the capital of Israel?
Yeah, but as soon as Trump comes in, everything is bad.
Yeah, yeah.
The Democrats they turned on him, and whatever he says is going to be the antithesis of what's going on. And that's what it is.
Right.
Nikki Haley, the UN ambassador, she's very good, and she lays it out very clearly. If you don't vote with us, you're voting against us, that's all.
Yeah.
And you'll suffer for it because you want money. And I understand Guatemala voted with us. I'm sure they're going to get an extra $1 billion or $2 billion.
Well, you know what? Sure. That's how the game's played.
That's right.
And
exactly right.
You know, the carrot and the stick, and you know, I honestly believe that this president, Donald Trump, has arrived with what he perceived to be a mandate, and he is pursuing that mandate. And people in Washington, the one thing they really can't stand is somebody that actually means what he says and does what he says he's going to do. And they are having the proverbial conniption fit. They just cannot stand the fact that this man beat them fair and square, and that, you know, he's a guy that knows, you know, if it was a ping pong tournament and he'd never played ping pong before, he's beating them at their own game. And they just can't stand that. That is what they really hate.
To beat them. He's beating them on every level, and now he's beating them. Mueller is going to be out the door soon. I have it in my blood, my Jewish blood.
Right.
He's not going to be there very long. There's a lot of negatives on Mueller himself. And he was a good guy. I mean, he was the FBI director from 2001 to 2013. He is a registered Republican, as I understand Republicans. He's an awarded military person as well. So he's not a bad person, but he doesn't like Trump specifically. Now, we know Trump was not always a Republican. He was a liberal Democrat for many decades. But that's how it is.
Look at where he was. He was working on Manhattan. How do you do business in New York and not deal with liberals?
You got to deal with the unions.
Exactly.
And dealing with those unions, and the people that run those unions aren't kindergarten teachers. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
So he knows how to deal with. He knows how to be tough, and he is tough.
Pure as the driven snow? Are they pure as the driven snow? I don't think so. But yeah.
Well, look at this. Central Park has an ice skating rink. It's called Woolman Rink. The city was getting estimates for a 2, 3, 5 million, 10 million. This is like 30 years ago, something like that. Trump came in and did it in like 2 months for $500,000.
Right.
Some ridiculous amount of money just to get it going. That's the kind of man he is. He did it on the budget and on time, or even ahead of time. And that's what he wants to do. He wants to see things move. He wants to see things built up.
He
wants us to go to Mars now, to the moon. I mean, he's all over the map, and that's great.
The tendency of career politicians is to do nothing but talk about issues all the time and very seldom actually ever do anything or make any motion to get anything done. And they do this. They do this for various reasons.
You have to remember what Rome fell from: stagnation, inflation, stagnation, and at the periphery of it was being eaten away by certain tribal groups, and that's America under Obama.
Right,
exactly what was happening.
And when you look at it, I mean, Donald Trump, he's a guy that all his life, his career has been about getting things done. I mean, you don't. Especially in real estate, time lost is money lost. And so Donald Trump has always been of the mindset that, look, if you say you're going to do something by a certain date, then you had better come in right on time or early. And if you go over budget, I'll never do business with you again.
Right.
And that is how you have to be. You have to be a tough-minded leader.
Trump did not buy one TV for his hotel. He bought 1,000 TVs, and he said, "Well, look, this is my budget. I can afford this. What could you do for me?" And that's how he does his business, pretty much. The Paris Accords, exactly. The Paris Accords were well against us, and everybody knew it was against us. And it started with us because there were delays built into it for China and India and for the larger polluters in the world. But we had to institute it very quickly. So he saw that. He saw that we'd be kicking in most of the money, losing most of the jobs, and it would stifle our energy industry. So he stopped it, and he did the right thing.
Yeah.
And so forth.
Exactly right.
There were no cylinders, if people remember cylinder, under Donald Trump. Nothing at all. Solar panels.
Do you think at some point in time that there should be a committee put together in Congress to go back and revisit the cylinders of the world and realize how American taxpayers were fleeced by Barack Obama and his cronies, and Hillary Clinton too, and go back,
I would tell you,
and follow the money trail and start making some noise about indictments and investigations?
What you're constructing is something that we all want to see, but will never happen. First, it's going to cost too much money. If Cylinder got $500 million, you'll bet they'll spend $500 million just to investigate them. There'll be money flying all over the place. I think it's better we move on. I like to see what you just said too occur, but that's just not going to happen. I'd like to see Hillary indicted. It's just not going to happen. The fix is in. There are too many fixes. They go too deep into the government. And Obama's shadow government, it's not going to go away. It's going to be diminished, but it's not going to disappear. There's too many people embedded in the government. And I know many people living on the East Coast, 60 miles north of Washington. They're liberals.
Yeah.
A lot of government workers are liberal, and they don't like Trump. But they like their paychecks.
Yeah, they sure
like
do.
When the paycheck goes up from reduced taxes. They like that as well. You know what irritated my wife and I? We heard Tom Hanks speak the other day. He has a new movie coming out about the Washington Post.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep are in it. Just really
it's revisionist history.
Exactly. You're ahead of me. You're so far ahead of me. And the point is, he's saying, well, it reflects what's going on right now with Donald Trump, and he's bashing the news, and all the news is truthful. I said, what is the matter? This is the real Forrest Gump.
Yeah, exactly.
He is Forrest Gump.
This is the guy that dressed up.
I like Forrest Gump. I thought he was a great character, but he is acting like Forrest Gump, like a Dumbo.
Exactly. Between that and the fact that his real acting career started because he was willing to dress up as a girl and pretend to be a girl in an all-girl housing unit, along with Peter Scolari. I mean, Tom Hanks, he is morphing into Al Gore. He really is. In terms of, if you take somebody that used to be reasonably intelligent and talented, and then time goes by, and all they've ever heard all their life is how great they are, and so they start acting as though, well, if I have a thought, it must be perfect. And this, this in the long run, what they are doing, this movie about the Washington Post, it's all based on this concept that Woodward and Bernstein were both angelic figures that acted completely and totally non-politically in pursuing Richard Nixon at the Washington Post. The actual fact is that, in the minds of Democrats, since the days of Richard Nixon, there's no fact, there is no evidence that will dissuade people on the left from criticizing a sitting Republican president and moving towards them in a hostile fashion to try and intimidate them out of office. Now, I think Richard Nixon did what was best for the country. I really do. But
I like Nixon. He was a great guy.
He was an amazing, accomplished president in the time that he was in office. Dr. Mark, we need to take a very quick time out. We'll come back with more. Dr. Mark Davis, our guest. Phone lines open at 855-853-5227. More to come in just a minute.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, everybody. J.J. McCartney here. It's not very often that I get excited about a product, but I am sure excited about this one. I'm talking, of course, about MyPillow.com. These pillows are made in the USA. They come with a 60-day comfort guarantee and a 10-year warranty. They are machine washable and dryable. They come with a patented interlocking fill. It keeps you cool at night, and it will not go flat. Go to MyPillow.com. Click the Radio Listeners Special tab and use promo code JJMC to get 2 premium king or queen size pillows and 2 additional go anywhere travel pillows for one special price and free shipping. That's mypillow.com, promo code JJMC, or call 800-953-6613. That's 800-953-6613. mypillow.com, promo code JJMC.
Well, there's a rockin' place I know where all the radicals can go. It's called the mosque, where the mullah's gonna tell you all to kill the infidels at the mosque. Yeah, the cats and chicks really get their kicks at the mosque. If you're feeling like a wreck, well, you can point yourself to Mecca at the mosque. If you're lonely as hell, you can join a sleeper cell at the mosque. Yeah, the mullahs are the maddest and the body odor's baddest at the mosque. Oh, well, you better believe it, all the refugees are at the mosque. And if your dog goes missing, better check the kitchen at the mosque. If you're a Christian or a Jew, you know they're coming after you at the mosque. At the mosque. Well, you can find Muhammad or Saeed or Ahmed at the mosque. They're building bombs in the cellar just for Pam Geller at the mosque. Yeah, they feel right at home in every gun-free zone at the mosque. Well, you can plan your next attack with the guys from Iraq at the mosque. Make sure your target is soft and you might really pull it off at the mosque. Oh my goodness. But don't say we didn't warn you when it comes to California at the mosque. Oh, well, the Democrats say they're gonna do some praying at the mosque. They think there's more than a smidgen of a peaceful religion at the mosque. Yeah, they're going insane with Barack Hussein at the mosque. Well, there's a lot of crazy people where you see the funky steeple at the mosque. So don't you dare be late for the caliphate at the mosque. If it's Shiites or Sunnis, they're all a bunch of loonies at the mosque. 72 virgins? Yeah, that's what they tell you at the mosque. Good luck with that.
Parkinson's disease is a neurological movement disorder affecting an estimated 1 million Americans, including many under age 40. The American Parkinson Disease Association is the largest grassroots network in the United States, working to help ease the burden and find the cure for those coping with Parkinson's. Visit apdaoptimism.org today to find out how you can help millions live with dignity and optimism. Your action today will help APDA put an end to Parkinson's disease.
Learn more about who we are and what we do by clicking the About Us tab at jjmccartney.com. The show will continue after these messages.
Captain Eric Lawrence was training Afghan soldiers when his truck was hit by an IED.
I sat home alone for months. I didn't want that anymore. I wanted to go back to work. PVA helped me write my resume, got me a job interview. I got the job.
Paralyzed Veterans of America. Changing lives, building futures. To learn more, visit pva.org. A public service message from Paralyzed Veterans of America.
All right, welcome back. It's the J.J. McCartney Show. Dr. Mark Davis, our guest. And Dr. Mark, during the break, I was just checking on, news and stories we see on Drudge today. And, we're supposed to remember those that are less fortunate than we are around this time of year. In the city of Morovis, Puerto Rico, 3 days before Christmas, Doris Martinez and daughter Miriam Navarez joined their neighbors in a line outside City Hall in Morovis, a town of 30,000 people, still living without electricity in the mountains of central Puerto Rico more than 3 months after Hurricane Maria battered the U.S. territory. They waited 2 hours under the searing sun for their twice-weekly handout of 24 bottles of water in a cardboard box filled with basic foods such as tortillas, canned vegetables, and cereal. Now, this obviously shed some light on just how completely devastated Puerto Rico was by Hurricane Maria. But the natural assumption that is made by people is that they must wait on the government to help them. Now, obviously, this woman is 73 years old. She's probably limited in what she can do by herself. But, there was a time in America when people were resourceful when these types of things happen. Well, now it's like everybody does the same thing. They just stand in line and wait for the government to give them relief. And, if you sit there and wait long enough, then chances are some of you are going to starve to death.
Yes. Part of this is being blamed on Donald Trump. You know that.
Oh, of course.
He didn't act quick enough. He's not sending enough money there. There's a backstory, though, that many people don't know, and that backstory may be true, and that is that Puerto Rican government is giving out $125 million, or has already given them bonuses to people that work in the government or former workers of the government. $125 million could go a long way getting the electricity back, toilets flushed, roads cleaned up, and so forth.
Well, the biggest...
But that they don't care. They want more money. This is about money.
Yeah, the biggest stumbling block, though, Mark, to the delivery of relief has been these labor unions. They have insisted that nobody but labor unions can deliver relief anywhere on the island.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of politics, Democrat politics, the tactics of extortioners. It is the tactics of organized crime. It really is. And, sadly, not very many people in the media are willing to fly against those headwinds. But, I mean, it's just a fact. Labor unions are corrupt as the day is long, especially on the island of Puerto Rico, where they have a monopoly on the transport business in Puerto Rico, and this is why relief has not gotten where it needed to be fast enough.
Puerto Rico is a very, very small area. It's about 25% of the small state of Maryland. It's about 3,500 square miles. It's not a big place at all. And they have a fairly good-sized budget down there. They want more money, and this is about money. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're not going to move on until they get more money from the federal government and send our people down there to put them at risk instead of their own people taking a risk to clean it up.
Right.
And that's what they should be doing, but they're not doing it.
Well, is there a right answer when a tragedy like this draws a bead on some place like Puerto Rico? What is the what is the ultimate solution? I think that first of all, Americans need to be much more resourceful. Even Americans in Puerto Rico need to be much more resourceful. And look, there are things that happen, and then you move on. I mean, in the case of our family, we lost our home in 2002 to a 1,000-year flood that happened in our neighborhood. And as a result, I mean, we just sit around and say, gee, I wonder what we're supposed to do now? Well, in a sense, everybody goes through that. But in the meantime, you start making your own solutions. You don't sit there and wait on somebody from the government to tell you where to go, where to live, what you can do next. I mean, we did what we had to do to survive and to move on. And if that sounds cold and uncaring, well, I'm sorry, but it's cold and I don't care. These people need to learn to be more self-sufficient. And the fact that America as a whole is more dependent on government today than ever in the history of the world, that is a very bad thing for the American people. And I would hope that everybody would look at this as an object lesson.
Well, these people used to entitlement. They've been given entitlement, and they've been the political structure. That's the way they pass money around. You have a lot of people working for government. You have a lot of people working just on the poverty line, basically, and they're used to getting money. And if it's part of the American concern, America is going to keep shipping money over there, which they have been under Obama. So Obama basically kept them quiet. Now that there's been a catastrophe there, they don't want to do anything. This sounds like Louisiana. After the floods down there, I mean, just people sat on their backsides, and that's what you see happening here. It's very surprising that Hispanics would be like that, but this particular group is, because the ones that I know, they build houses and they're builders, and they would clean this place up, but these are not that kind of people there.
I want to share a story with folks. You talk about the amazing human body, Dr. Mark.
Yeah.
70-year-old woman. Have you heard this story?
No.
70-year-old woman blown off a balcony, fourth-floor balcony, by hurricane-like wind, taken to the hospital in the back of a truck. 70-year-old Russian woman who was blown off her balcony when she went out to smoke a cigarette. She landed in a pile of snow and later was taken to the hospital in the bucket of a pickup truck after an ambulance could not reach the area. The incident took place amid gale force winds that have been buffeting Sakhalin Island. That's in far eastern Russia. Since early Monday, the elderly woman from the town of Shakhtarsk decided to go out and smoke on her balcony on the fourth floor of the 5-story apartment building. I think this is miraculous. She's blown off her balcony, lands in a pile of snow, and is otherwise just fine.
Someone was watching out for her. Someone was watching out for this.
I got to say, if she had been seriously hurt, that somebody out there would say, well, we should sue the tobacco companies for this, But it is amazing, and Sakhalin in far eastern, as I said, far eastern Russia. It's very, very near the Bering Sea, and it's one of those places that the weather in Sakhalin is probably as dynamic as it is anywhere on the earth. I mean, one moment you could have calm weather and sunshine. The next moment you're in a blizzard. It's literally that susceptible to weather. And I just, the thing I don't understand is why would anybody go outside when the winds are blowing 70 miles an hour? And I mean, how are you going to light your cigarette in 70 mile an hour wind? I mean, that's
what you have people. That's not a rational act by any stretch, but she may have had other motives. We don't know them, and luckily she's okay. So.
Right.
That's a good story.
Well, I'd like to meet this lady and give her some cash and ask her to place some bets for me like on the Powerball and all that, because obviously she had more than her share of fortune working for her on that moment in time. Here's a couple of stories I wanted to mention. A college is now teaching how to overcome the discomfort of being white. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
All whites are privileged, it says, and must be carefully trained in how to disband it. Disagree? Well, that's just another form of privilege. All the more reason you should be re-educated. This is according to the politically correct University of Michigan. The school recently held...
Democrats, it's a deep blue state. That's why that is what it is there.
The school recently held a 2-day conference to help employees use their whiteness to better fight for social justice causes. Now, this is where I say, screw the Department of Education, screw federal funding at universities. This is yet another reason why we should withdraw all federal funds at universities, state-run universities, because they simply are now have become so heavily politicized, and that only means one thing: that they are going to attack the American exceptionalism and traditions that made America a great nation. I'm not going to let my child have her brain infected by this type of institution. And I think that as taxpayers, we need to demand that they be defunded, because this has nothing to do with education, Dr. Mark.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. This is like trying to clean up society. Blaming race is the problem for everything, for the violence that we see, especially in the black community. It's their race. It's intrinsic to them. It's their culture. It's not my culture. And you see it, and you can see it here in Baltimore. We have more murders per 100,000 than they do in Chicago, with a population of 20% of their population. So you could see it's a cultural thing, and it's not. You can't get rid of it with rules, regulations, legislation. It has to come from within, and it's not going to do that, because it's being perpetuated by the same people that are in power, that keep feeding it, and they keep feeding it, and it's going to continue. And you see it now. Now we have police brutality, and police brutality is awarded to the violent types, the people that were affected. The criminals. The criminals get $1 million, $2, $3 million at a time. They say the police harass them, put a gun to them, threw them in jail, that kind of thing. And now this city council, which is major black in Baltimore, this pays out lots of money, your money, tax dollars.
Right.
Somehow federal tax dollars are there too. It's not just state of Maryland. Maryland's going downhill very fast. And Hogan, who's a Republican, our governor, Larry Hogan, he's not doing anything. And this is replicated in California and in Michigan, and then places we mentioned are always on the air. And it's just going to continue.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if people know who H.L. Mencken was. He worked for the Baltimore Sun. He was a very famous writer, and the Baltimore Sun wasn't always skewed to the left. And he had a housekeeper, and it's in his biography that he loved his housekeeper very much. She was an Afro-American woman, but he said that this group that she belongs to is not going to evolve for centuries. And there may be something to that. He is a white guy, brilliant, writing for the Baltimore Sun. He wrote, in the early 20th century, these kind of things. And we see that here. They're just showing their true vein. They're showing this population, and they don't want to improve. I give you example after example how uncivil these people are.
Right.
One after another. You hold the door for me when I go into the post office. So they slam it in my face most of the time.
Right.
They let it go.
Right.
Yeah. They did. I mean, their bathroom habits, everything.
Yeah.
About them, and if we speak about this any other place and any other show, they're going to call us racist and take us off the air.
Well,
I don't make this stuff up.
It is.
I'm not making it up at all, and I don't care who says it.
It's actually,
what about me?
they're actually.
What I see and view.
They're actually separate cultures, and the bottom line is that with all of this talk about assimilation and tolerance and all these other things, you cannot And this is the thing. You can't put two people together who are completely uncomfortable around one another and around one another's cultures and force them to bond. It simply doesn't happen that way. It's not organic.
Archie Bunker had a way of stating it. He was talking to Sammy Davis Jr. on the show back in the 1970s. He's talking to Sammy, and he says, Bunker is saying he put you guys, Afro-American, he put you guys in Africa, and he put the rest of us in white countries. And it was fun. And the way it comes out, you can pick this up on YouTube.
Yeah.
The intent was that we were meant to be separated. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know, but I could say we are extremely different cultures in many, many levels. Not just
I think the people
ideology.
I think the people, both peoples, were happier when they were in their native environments, not trying to force this commingling. And it's not, that's not to say that in this modern time that people that get together from different races are bad, evil, or anything else. Yeah. It's just there are a number of stumbling blocks in the way that prevent that kind of coziness from happening very often. And, as we look at things nowadays, I think viewpoints are a lot different. But if you try and force it, you're going to have trouble. It's just...
Well, you could thank the Dutch. In 1619, a Dutch ship arrives at Jamestown, Virginia, and the first Afro-American slaves were brought there. Many of these people were sold. Many of these Afro-American slaves were sold into slavery by their own people. And those are how the stories go. It's not just the Dutch went in there with guns, started shooting up. They didn't have very sophisticated guns around.
There's this mistaken notion by people that the United States invented slavery.
Of course.
It's really ridiculous.
Well, in respects to overseas, I believe slavery was abolished in England, I think 1832. They beat us by about 33 years. But
that was a civilization that
exists in the world now.
They had
There's still slavery in the world now.
They had about 10 centuries on us of being a nation. America, it was less than 100 years from the time we were founded to the time that we did away with slavery. So I think, it's apples and oranges in one respect. I wanted to mention this. Totally different subject here. The FBI continues to cling to outlandish and salacious claims in the so-called dossier of opposition research funded by Democrats against Donald Trump during the 2016 election campaign, even though the Bureau's own officials admit the document's allegations are largely unverified. The dossier some Congress members probing the matter believe was presented as evidence by the Obama administration before a FISA court to obtain permission to spy on the Trump campaign. Dr. Mark, this is exponentially worse than anything that any campaign has ever done before.
If you remember, Donald Trump came out and said that he was being spied on at Trump Towers in Manhattan, in New York City. He said that. No one believed him. They all discounted it. Now it's turned out to be true, and the FISA court approved it based on false documentation, which was ginned up by the FBI and the Democrats in Hillary's campaign, and it turned out nothing to be true.
Right.
Yet they went with it. They didn't ask for much basis for it. There is a lot of legal entanglements that go with this, but the bottom line is Trump knew ahead of time, and he discussed it out in the open, and people put him down for it. But he was right, and he continues to be right.
Well, the thing that frustrates me is that this, the Federal Bureau of Investigation is supposed to concern itself with criminal matters. What they have instead done is put a lot of their resources to work pursuing a political lynching of a candidate for the United States presidency with the full knowledge of the people on top of the FBI, including James Comey. When all of this is going on, when this Peter Strzok was shopping around the dossier in front of FISA courts, and the FBI has been very tight-lipped about what actually happened, to such a degree that I think that Trey Gowdy was about ready take them out into the courtyard and get a firing squad put together. I mean, the FBI is supposed to be pursuing justice for all of America. And instead what they were doing was they were being used as a political Gestapo in the 2016 campaign.
Well, they were creating injustice for so many
Exactly
people.
right.
So many more people involved than Donald Trump. And the indictments so far have nothing to do with Russian collusion, as you know. Basically, the mandate for Mueller is too broad spectrum. And you could, if you read the original mandate, it doesn't allow all this stuff that's going on. They've tried to get into Trump's finances from the 1980s. What kind of transactions he had with Russia at that time and other countries as well, as one example. This is not the way to go for an investigator. You have narrow bounds, and you work on those within those narrow bounds, and he didn't do them. He's all over the place.
Exactly right.
But to his credit, he did fire a couple of people that were politicizing this. But I still think the whole thing is politicized, and it should be stopped, and it should be stopped today.
I think he needs to fire himself.
He needs to get rid of himself, because Donald Trump's not going to do it.
Yeah, well, this investigation is going nowhere. And, any other person would have the right of due process. And the fact that they have tried to string this out as long as they have is nothing but a veiled attempt to derail the agenda of the Trump administration. It is purely political. There is nothing substantive, evidence-wise or otherwise, to justify this continued witch hunt going on with absolutely no evidence of wrongdoing. And in most cases, the salacious allegations made about Donald Trump were conjured up by this guy named Chris Steele, former British spy. He's the one that was paid to write up all this nonsense about Donald Trump. The whole thing about prostitutes and peeing on the bed that Obama's slept in. None of that even never happened. It never happened.
Well, you remember when Nixon tried to fire, he did fire Special Prosecutor Archibald Cox.
Yes.
Which led to the resignations of Elliot Richardson, who was the Attorney General at the time, and the Assistant Attorney General, I think his name was Ruckelshaus.
Yeah, Ruckelshaus. Yes.
Ruckelshaus as well. And that will be the cascade of things that happen if he fires them. That's really what led to the impeachment, letting these people go. Not only the Watergate issue, and so they would have some substance. They would say he's hiding something. But Mueller's had 8 months now, 9 months to do this, and he's done nothing.
Been a long time.
Nothing at all. Doesn't connect to anything.
And I'm profoundly disappointed in Jeff Sessions. By recusing himself, what he did was he lost control of his whole department.
Yeah. And he gave it over to Mueller. It was the concatenations, the links between it, and Comey and Mueller are very good friends. There's a lot of backstory that we don't know at this point in time.
Yeah.
And sad to say, it's continuing. And Comey keeps tweeting, just like the president. He tweets as well, and he tweets stuff negative about the administration.
I would love to see somebody put cuffs on Jim Comey for what he did.
I'm waiting for it. Yeah, that's not going to happen in the near future. These guys are close-lipped about each other.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, they're like cockroaches. They survive. Anything and everything that comes at them, largely because they know where so many skeletons are buried.
Yeah, and those skeletons are going to lead right back at them.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly right.
That's a very good summary.
Yeah, and unfortunately that's also true on Capitol Hill, where there's this good old boys network, and if somebody starts attacking somebody on their character, then all of a sudden you've opened up Pandora's box. And I look at guys like Trey Gowdy, and I think to myself, well, he talks so much about wanting to do these things, but he always seems to be outnumbered. And I think that's because everybody else...
There may be things on Trey Gowdy as well.
Exactly.
In fact, he may have kissed some girl in a sand lot when he was 5 years old, too.
And you wallow in the mud with all the rest of the pigs.
Right. Yeah, he may have been a lecturer at that when he was 5 or 6 as well.
You never know.
I guess that well, I patted a girl on the back when she was 4. I remember.
Yeah, in preschool.
And she punched me in the head. I remember she hit me with a shovel. It was horrible.
Oh gosh.
I bled for a whole minute.
Well, Dr. Mark Davis, always good to talk to you, my friend. Thank you for being with us. I hope you had a great Christmas and Happy New Year as well. We'll talk to you in the year 2018.
You're very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. All right, folks, we'll take a break and come back with hour number 2. News and commentary coming up on the J.J. McCartney Show next.
The great story here for anybody willing to find it and write about it and explain it is this vast right-wing conspiracy.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
It's no secret, whatever it takes to advance a very different vision for America.
I never told anybody to lie, not a single time, never. These allegations are false. Indeed, I did have a relationship with Miss Lewinsky that was not appropriate. In fact, it was wrong.
I'll tell you a couple of stories about fraud.
She wiped the server clean.
Personal emails are my personal business.
I saw it as a matter of convenience, and it was allowed. Others had done it. The server will remain private.
These 2 federal judges both saying the same things about her. There's too much deception here. Mrs. Clinton, when you speak to me, you will certify under penalty of perjury that you're telling the truth.
Going through the emails, there were over 60,000 in total. About half were work-related and went to the State Department, and about half were personal.
When you speak to the public, you say, I turned over everything. For the most part, a direct quote. When you talk to the public, you say, I turned over everything.
It depends upon what the meaning of the word is. Yes.
That's for the people investigating it to try to figure out. But we turned over everything that was work-related, every single thing.
90 to 95% of my work-related emails were in the state system.
Who told you that 90 to 95% of your emails were in the State Department system? Who told you that?
We learned that from the State Department.
The Inspector General report found that less than 1% of State Department emails, record emails, were captured. So they give a number of less than 1%, and you give a number of 90%.
I have absolute confidence that everything that could be in any way connected to work is now in the possession of the State Department.
If is means is and never has been, that's one thing. If it means there is none, that was a completely true statement.
When people push boundaries too far, it's not because they're strong.
I remember landing under sniper fire. There was supposed to be some kind of a greeting ceremony at the airport, but instead we just ran with our heads down to get into the vehicles.
Her arrival in Bosnia was not quite as dramatic as Clinton put it.
Good to see you.
Once again, her memory doesn't match our videotape.
Your opponents are saying that that's really part of a larger pattern with you, that you often avoid taking firm positions on controversial issues.
They are going to people showing videos of Donald Trump insulting Islam and Muslims in order to recruit more radical jihadists.
Fact checkers have said that she was wrong.
You, quote, take a backseat to no one when it comes to progressive values.
I take a backseat to no one when you look at my record and standing up and fighting for progressive values.
Last month in Ohio, you said you plead guilty to, quote, being kind of moderate and center. Do you change your political identity based on who you're talking to?
No, I think that, like most people that I know, I have a range of views, but they are rooted in my values and my experience.
You know, I get accused of being kind of moderate and center. I plead guilty.
Just for the record, are you a progressive or are you a moderate?
I'm a progressive. I represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out. Quit foreclosing on homes. Quit engaging in these kinds of speculative behaviors.
Now, who's exactly to blame for the housing crisis? And I think there's plenty of blame to go around.
You say anything to get elected.
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life.
Do you think there's something you can do to get a majority of Americans to believe you're trustworthy?
The following is a Nightside Radio Studios production.
From the wind-powered Nightside Radio Studios,
tear down this wall.
This is the J.J. McCartney Show.
It's this man. It's the compassion. It's the dignity. It's the wisdom. It's the horse sense of the guy.
Did you know that 65% of the people murdered in the last 10 years were killed by handguns?
Would it make you feel any better, little girl, if they was pushed out of windows?
The American people have seen the truth, and they can see through your lies. There's coming a day when publications such as yours turn into nothing more than flea market advertising. They'll be handing it out for free in grocery store parking lots under everybody's windshield wiper. Yeah, that's the future for the Washington Post and the New York Times and every other liberal publication in this country. We are not going to tolerate your bull anymore. None of it. The American people are fed up. I thought we made that clear on November 8th, but apparently you people in the media just don't get it. A new chapter in American history begins now.
It is my high honor and distinct privilege to introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America.
Donald Trump is the person to make America great again.
We are a team.
They said it couldn't be done.
Together, we will lead our party back to the White House.
He said it must be done.
Beginning on January 20th, we cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. The most important difference between our plan and that of our opponent is that our plan will put America first.
Here's J.J. McCartney.
All right, thank you, Marcus, and welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2 of the Tuesday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show on this day after Christmas. And I hope everybody had a very good, safe Christmas. And, it's a fun time. It really is. And, boy, I tell you, the food. Oh, my goodness. I'm talking amazing food this weekend. But hey, you know what? Now it's time to work off those holiday pounds. It's never too early to start. Although many people want to, have one more week of indulgence before getting on the wagon. Welcome back, everybody. Well, here's a list, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are sick and tired of the mainstream media constantly attacking Donald Trump with, by the way, allegations that are absolutely untrue. With mainstream media and the establishment politicians stacked against the president from the moment that he announced he was running for the presidency, Donald Trump has been in an ongoing pitched battle to communicate his plans and his eventual successes to Americans. Through public rallies and social media, he has managed to bypass the traditional information gatekeepers and has spoken directly to the American people, which is a good thing. So, Americans still being subjected to a relentless drumbeat from the Democrat Party, amplified by virtually the entire establishment media, that Trump is not only undisciplined, unfit for office, and possibly racist, but that embarrassingly little has been accomplished by the Trump administration. Nothing could be further from the truth. While he has befuddled and disappointed some with major promises such as Obamacare repeal and a border wall unfulfilled or put on the back burner. The stunning reality is that Donald Trump has amassed a long and remarkable list of actions and accomplishments that will surprise average Americans, even those who support the president and consider themselves well-informed politically. So here, then, is an accounting of the truly significant achievements of the first 8 months of the Trump presidency, compiled in conjunction with the Thank Trump card campaign, which has a dedicated website, thanktrump.us. The accomplishments are all the more noteworthy as they have been carried out in an environment of unrelenting negativity on the part of not only the Democrats and almost the entire news media, but the Beltway establishment itself, the entire donor class, the deep state, and even many Republicans wedded to the D.C. swamp. So here are accomplishments by the president in the month of December. Number one, human rights. President Trump on December 21st signed an executive order cracking down on individuals and groups that his administration deems to be perpetrators or enablers of human rights abuses and corruption. The order declared a national emergency related to serious human rights abuse and corruption around the world and imposed sanctions on 13 individuals. Trump was exercising his authority under the 2016 Global Magnitsky Act. Tax reform. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell praised the president on December 20th for his leadership in the passage of the biggest tax overhaul in 30 years, with some $3.2 trillion in tax cuts, along with significant simplification of the tax code. There was also regulatory reform. The Trump administration eliminated Obama-era rules requiring that organic poultry have enough room to run around and that organic livestock have year-round access to an outdoor space and comfortable indoor pens. Trump's Department of Agriculture argued that the rules would hamper market-driven innovation and evolution and impose unnecessary regulatory burdens. Number 165 on the list. President Trump on December the 18th removed climate change from the global threats listed in his national security strategy, reversing an Obama administration decision. I already told you about that. Obama, in the most recent strategy document, declared climate change an urgent and growing threat to our national security. Number 164 on the list. We're counting backwards, by the way. 3 years ago, ISIS had made substantial progress achieving its stated goal of a caliphate, boasting tens of thousands of fighters and territorial control over an area roughly the size of South Korea. But now, under President Trump's leadership of the armed forces, ISIS has collapsed in its Syria stronghold and in Iraq. As Northeastern professor Max Abrams and Cato Institute director John Glazer note in a Los Angeles Times op-ed, a former foreign fighter recently admitted, it's over. There is no more Daesh left, using an Arab acronym for ISIS. Number 163, regulatory reform. On December 14th, President Trump announced his administration has far exceeded its promise to eliminate regulations at a 2-to-1 ratio and impose no lifetime net regulatory costs. In total, agencies issued 67 deregulatory actions, while imposing only 3 new regulatory actions, and that's a ratio of 22-to-1. Federal agencies also achieved $8.1 billion in lifetime net regulatory cost savings. That's the equivalent of $570 million per year. Number 162, jobs. Some 228,000 new jobs were created in November, highlighting the strongest U.S. labor market since the turn of the century. The government also reported December 8th that unemployment was unchanged at 4.1%, but that's still nearly a 17-year low. Number 161 on the list of accomplishments for this president, the Trump administration asked a federal court on December 7th for an emergency stay to delay a court order to begin opening the military to transgender recruits by January 1st. Number 160 on the list is Israel. While the previous 3 U.S. presidents promised during their election campaigns to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, President Trump on December 6th became the first to follow through. In his official order, Trump also ordered the U.S. Embassy to be moved to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded saying, President Trump, thank you for today's historic decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The Jewish people and the Jewish state will be forever grateful. Number 159 on the list of accomplishments for President Donald Trump. This has to do with immigration. And, you know, I would love to be able to tell everybody how this president has done these things. He has done it fearlessly. He has absolutely acted fearlessly. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is all the more remarkable because of the way that everything has been portrayed regarding Donald Trump. It really is a remarkable achievement that he has made. Here we go. With regard to immigration, the Trump administration, this is, I think, a secret that everybody needs to be aware of. The Department of Homeland Security released figures in December that the Trump administration is delivering on the president's pledge to more strictly control immigration and deter would-be illegal border crossers. Border Patrol arrests dropped to a 45-year low in the fiscal year that ended September 30th. That's down 25% from a year earlier. ICE said the number of people apprehended away from the border leaped by 25% this fiscal year. The increase is 37% after Trump's inauguration compared to the same period the year before. Number 158, states' rights. President Trump signed 2 executive orders on December the 4th that gave back about 2 million acres of land to the state of Utah by modifying executive orders by President Obama, arguing the Antiquities Act requires that any reservation of land as part of a monument be confined to the smallest area compatible with the proper care and management of the objects of historic or scientific interest to be protected. Trump reduced the federal government's control of the Bears Ear National Monument to just 201,876 acres, pointing out that the important objects of scientific or historic interest described in Obama's proclamation are protected under existing laws and agency management designations. He also reduced the Grand Staircase National Monument in Utah from nearly 1.9 million acres to about 1 million. Now, folks, have you heard any of this in the mainstream media? Anybody? Have you heard any of these accomplishments? I doubt you have. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson announced on December 3rd that the Trump administration is withdrawing from the Global Compact on Migration, arguing the pact would undermine the sovereign rights of the United States to enforce our immigration laws and secure our borders. Tillerson made the announcement just before the opening of a global conference on migration in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Tax reform. Propelled by the engagement of President Trump, the Senate on December 1 passed the biggest rewrite of the nation's tax system since 1986, reducing rates for businesses and individuals. The Republican-led House passed a similar bill in November. The two chambers of Congress negotiated a reconciliation of the two bills, and it has now been signed into law. Number 155 on the list is health care. The Senate tax reform bill, passed on December 1st, eliminates Obamacare's individual mandate, the linchpin of Obama's government-controlled health care system, which penalizes taxpayers for choosing not to buy health insurance. Now, that's just in the month of December, which still has 5 days left. This president has tried to keep his promises. We go back to the month of November for just a few that I want to mention. The stock market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, surged more than 331 points. This is something that cannot be overstated. It really can't when you consider the shape that this economy was in. Now, the Dow Jones surged more than 331 points on November 30th to close above 24,000 for the first time in history. Stocks were buoyed by the possibility of the Senate passing the Republican tax cut bill championed by President Trump. I mean, that's a huge... I mean, when you look at the stock market in 2017, if you have a 401k, I don't have to tell you, because you've seen the positive impact. And the tax relief that's coming to corporations in America, nothing short of a complete phenomenon that Donald Trump was the architect of. Mining increased 28.6% in the second quarter of 2017, was the leading contributor to growth for the nation and in the three fastest growing states of North Dakota, Wyoming, and Texas. That according to the Commerce Department's Bureau of Economic Analysis. In response to North Korea's buildup of nuclear weapons and missiles, the communist nation was officially designated a state sponsor of terror by the Trump administration on November 20th. The Treasury Department followed up with sanctions on organizations and companies doing business with North Korea. Now, this is what is known as leadership. And this president has done it all. And he's done it all in spite of political and cultural forces lined up against him the entire way. This is the Tuesday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show. We'll take a break. We'll come back with more in just a minute on the J.J. McCartney Show. Don't go away.
The J.J. McCartney Show.
Hey, everybody. J.J. McCartney here. You know, it's not very often that I get excited about a product, but I am sure excited about this one. I'm talking, of course, about MyPillow.com. These pillows are made in the USA. They come with a 60-day comfort guarantee and a 10-year warranty. They are machine washable and dryable. They come with a patented interlocking fill. It keeps you cool at night, and it will not go flat. Go to mypillow.com. Click the Radio Listeners Special tab and use promo code JJMC to get 2 premium king or queen size pillows and 2 additional go anywhere travel pillows for one special price and free shipping. That's mypillow.com, promo code JJMC, or call 800-953-6613. That's 800-953-6613. mypillow.com, promo code JJMC.
This was not what I was expecting at all. I just thought someone was going to ask me my career plans, and that would be it.
Scared Straight, Liberal Arts Edition.
Now shut up and listen. I majored in the humanities. I racked up $200,000 worth of debt, majoring in studio art and film studies. What was I thinking?
My name is Laura. I'm a creative writing major. I wanted to write fairy tales, and now I live with my parents.
My name's Mateo, and my major was ceramics with a minor in electronic music. I can't even get a job at Pottery Barn.
You can't look someone in the eyes and say, I studied the tribal dance of the Hopi Indians.
Everybody put up the number 4 in the air. That's how many years you have to make it right. If you go to grad school, that's another 4 years.
Don't go to grad school!
Don't go to grad school!
You think that's funny? I racked up another $100,000 worth of debt in grad school. Wipe that smirk off your face. I'm gonna be paying off my student debt until I'm dead.
When you're the oldest person working at a coffee bean, you come find me and tell me you don't drink yourself to sleep.
What's your major? Music? You better learn how to make ringtones.
I'll hand you my phone, all right? Yeah. I want you to take it, I want you to put it up to your ear. And I want you to repeat after me. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Can I have $1,000 for rent this month?
Can I have $1,000 for rent this month?
Yeah, you're gonna be saying that every month until you decide to become a teacher at 32.
Do you have a Costco card?
Of course I don't have a Costco card. There are membership fees for that. We brought you here. We're yelling at you because nobody else will.
Don't let this happen to you.
I mean, I'm used to these kind of talks.
I'd rather hear it from angry people than from my parents.
P is for psycho.
It's a rodeo crown with a President Obama mask at the Missouri State Fair.
Mommy, what's wrong with that man's face?
This isn't the far right's first rodeo. I mean, I don't know what we're looking at here. It is fruitless to question it. We had a 630% drop today at the Dow. No one, even in the name of creativity, should enjoy a large consumer base when they denigrate people based on race.
Today we mourn a stooge.
I'm going to say what you said was racist. I'm going to say what you said was abominable. I'm going to say you should be fired for saying it.
White folks was in the cave when we had built empires. We learned to admire them, but they knew to admire us.
Race baiting by color profiteers like the Great Distractors, Reverend Al Sharpton, and Jesse Jackson, furthering their cause, not the black man's.
We built pyramids before Donald Trump ever knew what architecture was. We taught philosophy and astrology and mathematics before Socrates and them Greek homos ever got around.
2 minus 3 equals negative fun.
But resist we much. We must and we will much about that be committed.
Lead paint, delicious but deadly.
You have a mission. It's no collision. Hold the phone. Don't text. You're angling to be next. Brothers and sisters, you won't see it coming. You're off the road. Your life explodes. It's not worth it. Don't do it. You only think there's nothing to it. Put it down. Hang up. Pay attention to highway action. Behind the wheel, there is no such thing as a small distraction. Join the conversation at decidetodrive.org. A public service message from the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
You're listening to the J.J. McCartney Show with me, J.J. McCartney, on jjmccartney.com.
Today, my new dad threw a barbecue.
Today, my new son and I threw a barbecue.
There were burgers and chicken.
I burnt everything. The burgers, the chicken, the salad.
They were delicious.
They were awful.
And then we had watermelon.
I'm allergic to watermelon.
And then we played catch.
I broke Mr. Lewis's window. Mrs. Wakeham's window. Mrs. Wakeham's windshield. And then, somehow, my hand. My hand!
And then my dad even let me drive his car.
The hospital's on the right! It was a rough day.
It was a great day.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
All right, we are back on the Tuesday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show on this 26th day of December 2017. We are counting down the days until the new year arrives, and I want to say to all of you that have been, faithfully following the show for as long as you have, I just, you are like family to us. And we really do appreciate all that you do. And, we are now in a really critical part of our show's history here. And, we don't spend nearly as much time as other people do fundraising. The reason we don't is because we have a really buttoned down operation here. We really, really do. But every now and then, something comes along that requires us to ask for some help. And, we had a critical problem that developed several months ago with regard to, our main pieces of equipment used for the broadcast, specifically our broadcast console and peripheral attachments to it. And we have, stepped way, way out on a limb to make sure that we get all of the components that we need to correct the issues that we had. And most of the issues that we had were simply because this equipment is so old. Well, we are now in the process. We already have the digital console in place, and that is where I am speaking to you from. We went from the big consoles that I'm sure you saw in many of the shots we did of the studio from time to time. I want to show you what we do now, okay, just so you can see. You folks watching on YouTube can see where we are broadcasting now on this. This is our digital console. And this console is remarkably compact. It really is. I mean, it's you just compared to the size of my hands here, you can see it's not very big. We put a coffee cup next to it here so you can see. See, it's really not that big. I set the coffee cup right there because there's nothing liquid in it. That is the size of our main digital broadcast console. Now, this console sold for, I want to say, around between $6,000 and $7,000 new. And this particular unit was very lightly used, and we were able to purchase this thing at a incredible price. And so instead of relying on older equipment that was really beginning to fail far too often, we decided to go with this. It's sleek. It is, it's a digital console, so all of the mixing is done on a digital level. Now, what that means is that there's a lot less likelihood of any kind of problem from the environment around us, whether it's interference coming in, bleeding in from radio towers that are in the neighborhood, or it's a noise on the electric lines. All of that stuff is eliminated by the fact that this is a digital console. Now, I still have a few things I have to do so that everything is digital all the way from the computer desktop to the digital console to the encoder we use so that there is absolutely no chance of that kind of noise and interference messing with our product. So that's our new digital mixing console. Now, it's small, like I said, compact, very easy to make room for here in the studio. I counter that by saying I never like to put all my eggs in one basket. And so the other console that we are adding to the studio is going to mostly be used for production purposes. That is, mixing of commercials and other promotional items and comedy bits and whatever, and for when we have multiple guests that will actually be in the studio. It is considered by many to be the best analog console that was ever made. And again, shopping around, finding bargains where I can find them, we picked up that console and this one, the one I just showed you. Now, the one I've got that I'm going to be bringing up the stairs, it is a 14-channel analog console, but it's got so many features that it would take me all day to explain to you all of the ways that this thing is just superior. The features that are built into it, which are designed to make life easier for somebody running a show. And quite honestly, when it comes to studios, I mean, I've worked in some of the very best in the world. This studio, for its location and for how we've got it configured to run a talk show, there is not anybody that has us outdone when it comes to our equipment. It's really amazing. Truly it is. The telephone issues that we had last week have been eliminated. And I want to show you what I did to get rid of the complications that had arisen, because there were some. And you recall last week we had a few days when our guests could not hear me, and it was a real frustration. Well, without showing all of the mess, I want to show you everything that I eliminated so that our wiring was simplified over the weekend. I spent all of Saturday working in the studio. Now, look, this is my recliner. And what you see there is a whole bunch of different tangles of wire and other stuff. I kid you not, that's only the very tip of the iceberg. I got rid of, I think, somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 feet of wiring on Saturday. I spent all of Saturday afternoon on my back underneath the console. Let me show you a little shot of that. Show you the floor here, okay? I don't know if you can see that, but that's one of our racks where we have equipment that allows us to record the show live while it's running and distribute the audio elsewhere. But if you look down here a ways, there's only one wire on the floor. Do you see that? That wire on the floor is a network cable attached to the computer that carries our audio stream. And that's just a matter of tying that one down and getting it out of the way. But what we did is we eliminated literally, I think, close to a half mile of wiring that was put in place when we were trying to accomplish different things in a working studio. And the ham radio setup, I used I used the wire I had to carry switches. I have switches that key my radio so that I can use the microphone here, push the button, and talk on my ham radio. And there was so much of that stuff running back and forth, carrying audio and microphone cables and all these other things. Totally eliminated them. And at the same time, put in what are called matching devices, so that if you've got consumer electronics, for example, a desktop computer that has the mini plugs that you plug your headphones and your microphone into, that is consumer grade stuff. And the best way to interface that with broadcast equipment is by using what's called an impedance matching network, so that each side of the equation, plugged into the front of the computer and connected to the channel on the board, is seeing the right impedance that it's expecting to see. That protects your circuitry from prematurely wearing out and things like that. So we did that for the telephone system computer, as well as for a couple of other things that we had going back and forth. And I know this is inside baseball here, but I spent most of Saturday on my back rewiring, rerouting, and eliminating extraneous cable runs. What you find is that sometimes over the course of having a studio for 15 years, you forget what certain wires were really for until you go to try and dismantle it all. A lot of people would describe it as a rat's nest of wires, and I wouldn't argue with that. And as a longtime engineer, I've had to decipher my share of rat's nests of wires in the past. But it's no longer a rat's nest, and I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to eliminate so much confusion when it came to the wiring in the studio. And I'm very happy to report that the phone system is working great now. And, obviously Dr. Mark could hear us. That was a good thing. I have to tell you, even now, I was like, whew, I'm so glad that worked. Anyway, all of the things that we're doing, I mean, my labor is free because I'm doing it for myself. But the equipment and the interfacing materials I need, that's one thing. But then I ran into another problem Saturday night. And this is one of those things where, again, sometimes you can save a little money by buying something that's used. But in the end, if it's used, especially if it's as old as Methuselah, then eventually you can expect problems to come up. And in the case of my ham radio setup, my ham radio transceiver, that is the actual radio, decided Saturday evening that it no longer wished to transmit on my behalf. And there was no smoke, no poof of smoke, no problems in that regard. But for some reason, this 25-year-old radio simply refused to obey its commands anymore when it came to transmitting. And so we're going to have to find a suitable replacement. Either that or spend good money trying to fix a 25-year-old radio. As for me, I think I would rather buy something new than to throw good money after possibly bad. 25 years is a fairly long lifespan for any piece of electronics. And so what I'm planning on doing is finding a bargain somewhere and putting a new radio in place of the old one. But, obviously these are things that we don't have in the budget on a regular basis. And so it's definitely coming down to crunch time. I have spent, in the history of this program, I kid you not, we have spent in the neighborhood of $125,000 in both equipment, operational expenses, and when you figure how things depreciate over time, it's been a major undertaking, and it's something that I feel is an investment. I really do care about the quality of the show, and I really do care that you are getting what you need from us. So, please say prayers for our operation and that we can find the funding that we need to do the things we need to do. And, I'll just put it at that. You know where we are at www.jjmccartney.com. There is a donate button there if you want to help us out. We'd greatly appreciate it. And I promise you we put those dollars to work. We don't hoard them. We don't take them for granted. And definitely we put them right back into the operation, because that, to me, this is the mission that we were called to pursue several years ago. And I thank you all for the support you've given us in the past. And I just ask for your prayers as we go about continuing to try and improve the operation and make it as bulletproof as we can. All right? Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to go back to the list of accomplishments that President Trump has amassed in his time in office. Regulatory reform is one that I think is quite significant. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced on November 17th that the Department of Justice will cease the practice initiated by President Obama of issuing guidance memos to enact new regulations that sometimes have the effect of changing federal laws. I mean, this should be self-explanatory. The president was essentially, under Obama, he was presuming the duties of the Congress by writing these ridiculous guidance memos instructing the Justice Department to ignore the written law and instead do what the president tells them to do. President Trump instructed Attorney General Jeff Sessions to cease and desist with those guidance memos. And then there's the nation of Iran. President Trump issued a memorandum on November 16th determining that the United States has enough petroleum coming from countries other than Iran to permit a significant reduction in the volume of petroleum and petroleum products purchased from the mullah-led nation. And then there's the issue of trade. During President Trump's visit to China in November, trade and investment deals worth more than $250 billion were announced that are expected to create jobs for American workers, farmers, and ranchers by increasing U.S. exports to China and stimulating investment in American communities. Pretty amazing stuff. There's government transparency. The federal government on November 9th made public more than 13,000 additional documents from its files on President John F. Kennedy's assassination under orders from President Trump. It was the fourth released since October, when the president allowed the immediate release of 2,800 records by the National Archives. International liberty. President Trump proclaimed November 7th, the 100th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, as the National Day for the Victims of Communism. Bold statement. Religious liberty. The Department of Agriculture issued a guidance on November 6th that ensures Christians who opposed same-sex marriage would not be discriminated against for their beliefs. Number 145. List of accomplishments by Donald Trump since his inauguration. President Trump announced in the Oval Office on November 2nd that the semiconductor manufacturing company Broadcom Limited is moving its headquarters from Singapore to the United States. Broadcom is a Fortune 100 company that already employs more than 7,500 workers in the U.S., and that number is expected to grow exponentially with an estimated $20 billion to be spent on employees annually. Broadcom CEO Hock E. Tan said the decision to relocate Broadcom was driven by his desire to give back to this country that has been so very good to him. So, I mean, these are jobs, ladies and gentlemen, that are coming back to the United States. Number 144 on the list of accomplishments by this president. EPA Director Scott Pruitt placed 66 new experts on 3 different EPA scientific committees who espouse more conservative views than their predecessors. To prevent conflicts of interest, Pruitt signed a directive October 31st banning scientists who receive EPA grants from serving on the agency's independent advisory boards. I love that. I mean, that is the kind of transparency that is more than just talk. I mean, this president meant what he said when he was running. And he has accomplished so much more than anybody on the left ever imagined he would. As we look back even further into the month of October, job growth. The White House announced on October 25th that, when it comes right down to it, is there anything more important than job growth in terms of spurring the economy on? The White House announced on October 25th a new drone integration pilot program that will accelerate drone integration into the national airspace system. Under the program, the Department of Transportation will enter into agreements with state, local, and tribal governments to establish innovation zones for testing complex UAS operations and to attempt different models for integrating drones into local airspace, calling drones a critical, fast-growing part of America's aviation, increasing efficiency, productivity, and jobs. The White House said they present opportunities to enhance the safety of the American public, to increase the efficiency and productivity of American industry, and create tens of thousands of new American jobs. Also included in the list of accomplishments, government reform. Melania Trump, while embracing a more active and public schedule as First Lady, is running one of the leanest East Wing operations in recent history. According to a Fox News analysis of White House personnel, reports that found she has significantly reduced the number of aides on the First Lady's official payroll in comparison to her predecessor, Michelle Obama. During President Obama's first year in office, 16 people were working for Michelle Obama, earning a combined $1.24 million a year. This year, only 4 people were listed as working for Melania Trump as of June, with salaries totaling $486,700. Obamacare. President Trump signed an executive order on October 12th that directs 3 federal agencies to rewrite regulations to encourage the establishment of cheaper health care plans that can be purchased across state lines and are not bound by certain Obamacare rules and regulations. The directive would allow small business owners, trade groups, and others to join together to purchase health insurance. The plans would not be required to include benefits such as prescription drugs. The president also wanted to expand the sale of stopgap policies that don't cover pre-existing conditions, mental health services, and other costly benefits. And then there's consumer optimism. The U.S. consumer sentiment unexpectedly surged to a 13-year high as Americans' perceptions of the economy and their own finances rebounded following several major hurricanes, the University of Michigan survey showed on October 13th. Okay, next is the Iran nuclear agreement. President Trump announced on October 13th that he will not certify the Iran nuclear deal and vowed that the U.S. would pull out unless changes were made. He also unveiled a new strategy, the culmination of 9 months of deliberations with Congress and allies on how to best protect American security from the rogue Mullah-led regime. The plan includes denying the regime funding and any paths to a nuclear weapon and ballistic missiles. The Department of the Treasury sanctioned more than 25 entities and individuals involved in Iran's ballistic missile program. The U.S. also sanctioned 16 entities and individuals that have supported Iran's military and Revolutionary Guard Corps in the development of drones, fast attack boats, and other military equipment. So he's not messing around. This president of ours is not messing around. He's doing the job that he was hired to do. Finally, the United States is quitting the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. Heather Nauert, a State Department spokeswoman, announced the move will be made before the end of the year. The decision was not taken lightly and reflects U.S. concerns with mounting arrears at UNESCO. Now, the need for fundamental reform in the organization and continuing anti-Israeli bias at UNESCO. And that is something that we should never tolerate, is this bias against Israel at the United Nations. You do not reward bad behavior. That's considered bad form. To reward bad behavior, well, it's to encourage more bad behavior. And why would we do that? That would be stupid. But then again, we're talking about a time when Barack Obama was president, when stupidity was a daily feature of the Obama presidency. So there, ladies and gentlemen, just a few of the accomplishments of this president. There are many, many, many more that the mainstream media is not telling you about. Why do you suppose that is? Do you suppose the mainstream media has an axe to grind with President Trump? Do you suppose the mainstream media is colluding with the Democrats and the progressive globalists around the world, conspiring to try and force President Trump out of office? Now, where I come from, that's called sedition. Sedition is a form of treason, and it's something that we, as the electorate, should never tolerate from news organizations, political parties. You know, the arena has to be a place where contests of ideas are allowed to win out. And I think that President Trump has done an excellent job of teaching Americans that, yes, we do have the ability to improve the situation greatly in just a very short period of time. If you believe in what you are doing, and if you stand by your convictions, is there any limit to what you can accomplish? Well, President Trump is proving that there really isn't any limit to what he can do in office, as long as he is being honest and truly pursuing the things that he promised us he would do. Now, you may not like the way the man tweets. Some people may not like the way the man speaks. But I say, when it comes to a president, judge him by the results he gets. And ladies and gentlemen, this president has gotten remarkable results. Remarkable results. Well, folks, that's going to do it for the Tuesday edition of the J.J. McCartney Show. I thank you all for being with us today, and thanks to Dr. Mark Davis for being our guest in the first hour of the show. Tomorrow, The one and only IQ Al-Rassouli will be our guest. We'll talk about all the latest news, plus what is happening a half a world away on the ground as ISIS officially now they're saying has been defeated. Well, we'll see what happens. All right, be good to yourselves, and if you possibly can, be good to someone else. And remember, we'll win in the end because there are more of us than there are of them. Because God is with us. And because we are all in this thing together. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you right back here on Wednesday. Until then, God bless everybody. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.